In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can
And we
do
are
for your
back
country.
for another invigorating story with Taylor. How are you, Taylor?
I'm good. I've been wearing the same pajamas for like 3 days. I have the worst allergies I've ever had my whole entire life. So I'm like hopped up on allergy medication.
What do you
Like,
take, Allegra?
I don't know. I've been taking a Zyrtec and a Benadryl,
Okay.
just trying to survive, like trying to be able to keep my eyes open, you know?
Yeah, my
It's like,
allergies this spring, or in particular, have been super, super intense. I can
ugh, it's been
empathize.
terrible.
But it's
It's been
beautiful. It's
terrible.
beautiful. It's like gorgeous here. Like you should come visit. Like it's the weather's unbelievable. The wildflowers are everywhere. It's been so cool.
I know, it's so pretty. I have like all these wildflowers around my house that I think are technically weeds and they probably are hurting my allergies, but they're also so pretty.
Yes, leave
So I'm
them.
just leaving them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take more drugs.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Do you
Always good
wanna?
advice.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and introduce us?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. I am Taylor, joined by Fars, and we bring you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week. And Fars, can you just I'm going to take a screenshot of us. Can you do something? Make a face. Okay. I feel like people want to see our faces, so I just made a screenshot.
Cool.
It's quite cute. Okay. Yeah. So today, I think you talked about some popes last episode.
Indeed.
Super fun. And I am going to talk about something a little bit different. And I am going to make you guess one thing, but like not everything.
All right. Let's hear
Okay. Oh my God, I have a screenshot up and I'm confused because I'm like, are you frozen? But no, I was a screenshot of a picture I just took of you. So, okay. A few weeks ago, I was on vacation. I was at an Airbnb and they had the book, The Professor and the Madman by Simon Winchester. Simon Winchester also wrote a book on Krakatoa. So this is my second book of his that I've read recently. And I'm going to look at others because we have a lot in common, me and Simon Winchester, the author. But there's also a movie called The Professor and the Madman. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, it stars Sean Penn and Mel Gibson. Guess who's the professor and guess who's the madman? Just knowing just that.
Is Sean Penn the professor?
No,
Interesting.
Sean Penn is the madman. Yeah.
Interesting.
The other hint is
What
going to
year
be
was this though?
like 2009-ish.
Okay. And see
Maybe
it.
maybe more recent. But I was going to say if you're not I was going to give you another hint before I told you that the professor has a Scottish accent, which Mel Gibson loves to do. So he
Does he?
was
I don't know.
um and I also remember when you've seen Robin Hood Men in Tights, right?
Probably, but probably not enough to remember it now.
It came out like a year or two after the Robin Hood with what's his face from
Ethan Hawke.
Dances with Wolves? No, Kevin
Oh,
Costner.
yeah.
And Carrie Elwes goes, unlike other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent. And it's so funny because um he doesn't even bother to try to have
Costner
an
doesn't
English
even
accent.
bother.
Doesn't even bother.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
So anyway, this is a story of the making of the Oxford English Dictionary, which is a website that you need to sign up to access, and I couldn't get it to work. But it is something that was put together before computers, like indexing the entire English language.
Wow.
Also, like, imagine writing indexes before computers.
So hard.
Like, I
Yeah.
love an index, but like, man, what a job.
Yeah.
So, this is a story of three men. Two we'll get to know and one we won't know. There's Sir James Murray, Dr. William Chester Minor, and George Merritt. So we're going to be in England, London, and Oxford. London and Oxford, where the colleges are about an hour apart by train today. So maybe like a slower train in the Victorian times, but not too far away from each other. And we're in the late 1800s. So this is like Jack the Ripper time. It's Victorian. The Queen's just had her Jubilee. We talked about that in the Jack the Ripper episode. So it's like an exciting time to be alive, unless you're poor, which most people are. Then it's terrible.
As it is in any time.
Yes. So the nerds in London want to make a dictionary, and like as a joke, but it's actually a huge deal to like actually write down every single word and its origin and quotations and cite it back to the first time that it was written down. There's some context around like why now, because it's not the first time, obviously. Like people have been trying to make dictionaries or ways to like look at the history of words forever. But at this point, the British Empire is huge. at its like peak, and they're like, well, it looks like English is the winner, you know, so we need to make sure that we're writing down the proper way to speak in English so that everyone in the world will be able to know that because they plan to just colonize and forever.
Had that been done by any other culture?
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had been in English as well, but not with the goal of being like entirely comprehensive. So in 1755, a man named Samuel Johnson did it, but it lacked some words. Some of the words were like too old-fashioned, and they wanted all of the words. They wanted to know when they first came into literature, what quotes they could use. And it reminds me of there's a couple things that I've seen on Instagram recently that are funny. Like, have you heard that like the term the bucket list comes from the movie The Bucket List?
There's no way that's true.
It's true. It wasn't before that.
That's wild.
And then like the word toast for like your toast, if like you kill someone, Bill Murray said that improvised that in Ghostbusters because he was like burning something with his proton pack and was like, "You're toast." And then people started using that word.
That's wild.
And then another one that is, oh, we know gaslight from the movie Gaslight. We've talked about that before because like words are always entering our vocabulary, is my point. The other one that I saw recently in a couple different places online is that um, the name Madison for a girl is super popular. Like I have a Madison on my softball team, all these things, and it comes from the 1998 movie Splash with Tom Hanks, because in the movie there's a mermaid, Daryl Hannah, who comes, it like gets legs and like goes to New York City, and they ask her what her name is, and she looks at the street sign and says Madison, and they're like, that's not a name. And like that's a big plot point in the movie is that that isn't a name. Why would she be named that? And then after that, there's a huge like from zero to huge spike in girls named Madison.
You know what I just learned? There's two people in America who are named February.
That's cool. Good for them.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
I like that. So anyway, words are changing all the time, and we're adding words and all of that. Now it seems a little bit easier, but still very, very daunting. So in 1857, the London Philological Society, and Philological Society is the branch of knowledge that deals with the structure, historical development, and relationships of a language or languages. So they're like really trying to look at the language and where it came from. And they decide the best way to do it is to crowdsource the words. Like there's no way one person can just be like, okay, I know every word in English and I know where it came from. That would take lifetimes. But if a bunch of people are doing it, they can maybe get it done quicker. So they send out an ask to like everyone in the English speaking world that's like, help us to define and find the history of all of the words. So they said like read every book you have. If you find a word that you think you found in that book for the first time, send it in. There was like a very structured way to like put it on a note card, put the word in the top right, put the quote, put the where you found it, everything, and then send us these note cards. And some people were just doing it to get free books because they would like get the books and never send them back. It was kind of obviously like got unorganized like pretty immediately. And they did do some work in the 1860s. So there was a man named Herbert Coleridge, Frederick Furnivall. They were the editors in the beginning, but it was kind of a disorganized mess. And so for like 20 years, no one really worked on it. It just sort of existed as a project. So then in 1879, the Oxford University Press decided that they were going to take up the task, but they needed a new editor, someone to like really, really take charge and make this a thing. So we meet James Murray. So James Murray is Mel Gibson. He's our professor. He was born on February 7th, 1937 in Denholm, Scotland. He was super smart. He went to school till he was 14, till his parents couldn't afford it anymore. He got a job working at a school. He was a headmaster by the time he was 20, so he was like really an academic guy. He married a woman named Maggie Scott. She and their daughter Anna died of tuberculosis, which they called consumption, in like the first 2 years. So they had actually moved from Scotland to London for the better climate, which is hilarious because the climate in London is not cheerful and also it's dirty. But like that the doctor said move away from the Scottish winters to London. And he got a job at a bank, but he didn't love it. So it was like Gringotts kind of bank. Like he was like a bank teller and hated it.
You had me at Gringot.
They like specifically said in the book that he had a green lamp, which is what they have. You know what I mean? You can picture it.
Wait, that's
It's
real
a
thing. You met
visor
Green Lamb?
and a
Oh,
green
oh,
lamp.
oh, yeah, okay, yeah, got it.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's what it looked like. So He ended up marrying a woman named Ada Agnes Ruthven, and when they were married, so just to get an idea of like the circle that James Murray was in, their best man was Alexander Graham Bell. Like he's like hanging out with Smarties. Alexander Graham Bell calls Murray the grandfather of the telephone because he just like bounced ideas off of him all the time.
Man, good
Really good
circle.
friends. Yeah. So he him and Ada have 11 children, and she's more his speed. She's very supportive. In the film, they do this like really weird scene at the end where she dies and it shows, or they just like, she just kind of disappears off screen, and then like all of a sudden there are grandkids, and it shows that like their family kept going. And so she was really supported him in all of his work. And so anyway, he's working at a bank. He likes reading and etymology. He knows a shit ton of languages. He applied for a job at the British Museum, and this was in his letter, and this was in the book, and in the movie they have Mel Gibson actually say this out loud as he's applying for the job. But he says he has an intimate acquaintance with Italian, French, Catalan, Spanish, and Latin, and to a lesser degree Portuguese, Vaudois, I don't know what that is, Provençal, and other dialects. He's tolerably familiar with Dutch, German, and Danish. He studies Anglo-Saxon, Saxon, and Gothic Celtic. He's engaged with the Slavonic languages. He has a useful knowledge of Russian, and he has sufficient knowledge of Hebrew and Syriac to read the Old Testament. He also said that he, to a lesser degree, knows Aramaic, Arabic, Coptic, and Phoenician. So, like, he knows a lot of languages. He's a smart dude.
Yeah, you'd have to be a genius to keep all
Yeah.
that straight in your mind. I wouldn't be able to recite what you just said off my memory.
Yeah, he like very casually says like, oh yeah, oh I guess and I know a little Celtic, and I know Hebrew, and I know it's Pashto, which is like casual Hebrew. Like I'd look that up. So he knows a whole bunch of things. So in April he goes to in April 1879 he goes to the Oxford University Press and gets the job as the editor of the dictionary. In On March 1st, he gets started. They thought it would take 10 years and be 4 volumes at the end. In the end, it takes actually over 50 years and it's 12 volumes. So it's a lot bigger than they expected it to be. It also doesn't make a lot of money because people buy it, but they don't like need to buy it twice, that kind of thing. So,
50 years?
hmm
Wait, wasn't the same people working on it, was it?
no, he doesn't make it to the end.
Yeah.
No. So he starts to do some cool things. He builds a scriptorium, which is like a nod to like ancient Rome, where you would have like the like scrolls, like the Library of Alexandria didn't have books in it; it had scrolls, So
Right.
like that's what he named it after. He built one where he was living, and then later moved to Oxford, which is basically a big shed with little cubbies for every letter of the alphabet, with all these cards stuck into the cubbies for all the different words that they were trying to organize. He also looks like an old prophet. He has long white hair and like wears robes. He has like a really long white beard. So he's here in his scriptorium. There's a really fun scene in the movie where they're trying to figure out the origins of the word art, which is like harder than they thought it would be, and they're all really frustrated. And one of the guys who's working with him goes, "This is just A. What about B and C and D and E?" And he like throws something in the air and like runs out of the room. And you're like, "Yeah, dude, this is a big deal. There's a lot to do." Like just wait till you get to E. You have no idea. So, um, so he puts out a new letter asking for volunteers. So they had done that 20 years ago. Murray says we're going to do it again, puts out a new letter, puts it in newspapers, sends it to schools, says we need more volunteers to help us define words. He gets thousands of letters and he becomes a stamp collector, which is nice because he's just getting all these letters in and like organizing them. That's what they're doing. And he starts to get thousands of letters from one particular person, Dr. William Chester Minor, who's located at the asylum in Broadmore, Crowthorne in Berkshire, in England.
Like a mental asylum?
hmm So let's meet Dr. William Chester Minor. He's the American. He's our second character. The cute thing to note is that these two look exactly the same. Like I have white man with a beard face blindness. I think they all look the same, but these are two old white men with like long white beards. They look the same. They're
Yeah,
cute.
makes
Look
sense.
like good buddies. So William Chester Minor was born on June 22nd, 1834 in Ceylon, which is present-day Sri Lanka. At the time, Sri Lanka was an American colony, and obviously like in the book, The Professor and the Madman, they define a lot of words. Like at the beginning of each chapter, they define a word because it's a book about the dictionary. But one that I thought was cool is the word serendipity. So this is like what they had to do for each word, just for an example. And so The word serendip used to be the name of Sri Lanka before it was named Sri Lanka. It was called Serendip. And there's a Persian poem by a Persian fairy tale called The Three Princes of Serendip, where the three protagonists were skilled at making accidental yet happy discoveries. So that's part of that like Persian fairy tale. And then the that because of that story, the Princes of Serendip, the word serendipity was first used by Horace Walpole in 1754 to be to use it the way we think it is now, like finding something out of luck. Does that
Did
make sense?
you uh how on earth were they trying to find the first usage of the word?
Yes. So that
How
was
is
what
that
they would
even
do to go back.
possible?
That's what I'm saying. It's almost impossible. But that's why they had people reading like thousands of books and then they would say like they didn't go they would like they picked a year that like they went back to. It was like it wasn't like forever, but it was forever for like other some words. But some words they were like, let's just go back, 500 years. So like the furthest they went back in some cases was like Chaucer. Like did Chaucer use this word? Because before that things weren't even like you can't part of the problem also with reading Chaucer is that the words are spelled in ways that they're not always spelled that way. So like uniform making a language uniform is really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
now that we're talking about it, I'm surprised it only took 50 years.
I know. So yeah, so that's what I mean. That's an example. So you had to know that Sri Lanka was called Serendip. You had to know that there was that Persian poem called The Three Princes of Serendip. Then you had to know that Horace Walpole used the term serendipitous from that. And then now it's a word we like use,
Yeah, it's wild.
you know? So anyway, he was born in Sri Lanka to an American missionary, and his parents were both missionaries. His mom died when he was 3. His dad kind of took him around Asia so his dad could find a new missionary wife, which he did. And so he was able to, have more kids and like have a family in Asia. Um, his dad was also a printer, which gave Minor the opportunity to learn how to read, really early. So like, he read when he was 3, all of those things. He was super smart, also spoke many languages. When he was 14, he started to like go through puberty and kind of like start to like girls. And they were like, okay, we got to give you like more stable environment. So they sent him back to America to live with an uncle and go to school. So he went to Yale Medical School and became a surgeon. He did in the 1860s work on the Webster's Dictionary just for fun, which was like obviously other people trying to do it. It's got a lot going on. But he's a surgeon in the 1860s and it is the Civil War. And that is a terrible time to be a surgeon.
Yeah, it's
You are,
butchery. It's like literally scary stuff.
yeah, you are not like in a beautiful operating room doing nice things. It is pretty terrible. He, yeah, it basically means, cutting people apart. We've talked about how war brings newer weapons. Like we talked about that with like the Navajo code talkers went in with like bayonet World War One's guns, and then we end up with like atomic bombs. So like your things like progress quickly during times of war. So the weapons were, getting more and more advanced, but the medicine was not. The medicine was
Yeah.
staying the same. So it was a lot of like, chopping someone's leg off, like pretty, pretty bad. And so just like a lot of trauma. Also during this time, he's in his like early 20s. And later, much, much later, Minor is going to be diagnosed with schizophrenia when he's like an old man. But if you are schizophrenic, it usually starts to come out for men between the ages of 18 to 25. So even though like he didn't know that was happening and he wouldn't be diagnosed with it until much later, it's most likely that he was beginning to, have the hallucinations and things that go along with schizophrenia around this time when he's in these like really horrible battles of the Civil War.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So he's in the Battle of the Wilderness, which just sounds awful. It's like literally Grant and Lee are both there. There are wildfires in the middle of it because they're shooting at each other. There is people bleeding and screaming, just like absolutely horror show. And some of the people who are there to help the Union Army are people from Ireland, which I didn't know this, but there were 150,000 Irishmen came to the United States to fight for the Union Army. Some of them were there just to like make money and like have an adventure. Some of them wanted to go back to Ireland, with the skills that they learned in America to be able to fight the English, all that stuff. So they were there, but a lot of them were like, this is way worse than we thought it was going to be. So they deserted like while they were there. And again, like if you if you get far enough, they're never gonna find you,
Right.
you know? But if they did find you, you would be br this is a 50-50, maybe this is true, maybe this isn't, but you would be branded with the letter D for deserter on your face. So like awful disfiguration
It
on your face. So you
feels
couldn't,
rumory.
yeah. So you couldn't go home and like be a spy for the Irish army because you were really easily identifiable. So it would like ruin your life in many different ways. And so the story is that Miner had to do at least one of these brandings. So someone deserted, they brought them back and they made Miner, because he was the doctor, be the person to brand the guy's face. And that like traumatized him so much. And he was certain that the person he did it to was after him for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
like,
I would see why.
yeah.
Like,
So he's like, there's an Irishman always out to get me. So he would always carry a gun with him, which was like not that common in those days, and really wanted to like keep himself safe and really thought that there were Irish people after him. After this battle of the wilderness, he starts to kind of like be a little bit, you can tell that he has a mental illness brewing. So I sent him to New York. And while he's in New York, he saw a lot of sex workers and got a lot of diseases, which obviously made things worse.
yeah, probably lost his mind.
Yeah. So at one point, he had gonorrhea and he tried to inject white wine into his urethra to cure it.
Ugh, he
It
was a
didn't work.
doctor. Like,
Yeah. Mm-mm. Did not work. So they were like, okay, we got to send you away from this big city. So they sent him to Florida, and he was there for a little bit, but he ends up in St. Elizabeth's Hospital, which is a asylum in Washington, D.C., for 18 months. But his condition doesn't really improve. He still thinks people are after him. He, gets discharged from the army, and he has an army pension, and he moves to London to try to start a new life. So in 1871, he moves to London, which he buys a gun because he's afraid that the Irish are after him, which I mean, if you're afraid of Irish people, don't go to England.
yeah,
They're right next
bad
door.
move.
Yeah. But he lives in Lambeth, which is a part of London. He rents a room at 41 Tennyson Street, and his landlady will say that he's always saying that the Irish are trying to get into his rooms. He thinks people are in the floor and the walls and the ceiling. They come at night and try to make him do things. So he says all of these things. He's not doing great. And now we're going to meet our third character, George Merritt. We'll never really meet him. We don't even see his face. But George Merritt was just a dude. He was a father of six with one on the way. He was married to a woman named Eliza. He had moved to London from the country for job opportunities, and he worked at a brewery called the Red Line Beer Brewery, keeping the fire on. It was called a stoker. So you just like keep the fire going while they're boiling the hops, however you make beer. So he worked an early shift, and a fun thing is the way he woke up is he paid someone to knock on his window. People did that before there were alarm clocks. So that's fun.
Seems intrusive, and I would not like that.
So it's like a dude with a stick, and they'll come to my house at like 7:45, and he like knocks on your window with a stick, and then goes to the next house and whatever.
He,
So
it's like you pay extra for snooze.
yeah,
It was back
you
every
like
10
throw a rock
minutes.
at him, and you throw him like a quarter at him, and he comes back like a pence or whatever. So it's early in the morning on February 17th, 1872, and George is on his way to work. It's probably still dark. It's like almost dawn. He's on his way, and someone starts yelling at him and chasing him and calling him Irish and saying, "You were in my room," because Dr. Miner thinks that he saw someone run out of his room. So he follows that apparition out into the streets, and the only person there is poor George walking to work.
Poor guy.
So he shoots him, which is something that does not happen very often. So even people hearing gunshots, they were like, "What is this?" It's like a very odd Victorian crime to have a gunshot. But he shoots him, severs his spine. George dies on the street. People are like, "What is going on?" The police come. Minor doesn't leave. He stays. They describe him as like a very tall, very well-dressed gentleman. He's literally holding a smoking gun, and he's like, he was chasing me. I don't know what's going on. And then he was like, I also have a knife. And the police were like, just hang on to your knife for now,
Got
which
a
feels
lot
weird.
going on.
But they knew him because they also knew who he was because they knew he had been acting weird. Like he was always just like kind of an odd guy in the neighborhood. In history, in the papers, it would be called the Lambeth tragedy. And that is the end of George. But the murder of George is the reason that Minor is going to be in the asylum. At his trial in April 1872, he was found not guilty by reason of insanity and sentenced to, they called it indefinite confinement in safe custody until Her Majesty's pleasure be known, which means like for life. And he goes to Broadmore Asylum in Berkshire. He was 37 years old and he would be there for the next 38 years in
Jeez.
that thing. So Murray is working on the dictionary. Minor is living his life. He ends up in this asylum. And his life in the asylum is actually pretty okay. He has a $1,000 a month pension, which is $24,000 in today's money per month.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad. So he uses that for his like, just for expenses, and he has a really nice room. He's deemed low risk. So he has a really nice room. He gets to buy himself nice furniture and he has a library. He ends up having two rooms and just like thousands of books,
This
just
is
like a ton
perfect
of
for him.
books. It sounds really nice. He gets to watercolor, he gets to paint, he gets to just kind of hang out in there. Somehow he gets one of the flyers from Murray with the ask to send in words for the dictionary. It's possible that the widow, Eliza Merritt, George's widow, brought him a book that had the flyer inside of it, and that's how he saw it. She did visit him, and he did give her some of his pension so that she was able to take care of her children, which was very nice. In the movie, they fall in love, kind of, in like a weird way, but that's most likely not true. But they did
This
develop
Sean
some sort of
Penn
friendship.
falling in love.
Yes,
Okay.
but he looks awful. Like he's just like got his like big
He kind
scraggly
of looks
beard.
awful anyways.
Yeah, like it's
He's
not
got
good.
a weird face.
Yeah.
Looks like a pizza
So
slice.
So she does bring him books and maybe one of them had this but either way somehow he got a hold of the ask to write words to the dictionary. So he starts writing to Dr. Murray and contributing to the dictionary and he does it far more than any other person. And it's an extreme detail. So they use quotes. I mean again like he used quotes and he was really good at finding quotes. He was really good at answering arguments. Like they had a lot of trouble finding the word art. Like specifically, they were like, when did we first use the word art? Like, how do you even find that? And he was able to just like go back and like look into the volumes, request more volumes, and find it. There's proof that like even in the 1880s, they were speaking together via letter. But for about a decade, Dr. Murray didn't know that Minor was in the asylum because he was a patient.
So what, he just thought that he was like working there?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that it could have happened. The romanticized version is that Murray goes to Broadmoor and asks for the superintendent because he assumed that Dr. Miner was a superintendent because he was like so smart and so prolific. And then he meets him like either in his cell or like out in the yard and he's chained and he's like, oh, you're a patient here. But more likely, they set out a first edition of the letters A through Ant. Like they published A through Ant. There's just so much to do. They published A through Ant, and they had a party, and they assumed that Minor would come, and he didn't. So Murray was talking about him, and someone was like, "Oh, I know. I can't believe you're talking to that guy. He's in jail, essentially." And then he figured it out. So he knew, but he didn't like tell him that he knew. But then later, it just like was assumed that he knew that he
Yeah.
was a patient there. So they're like, this must be good and like rehabilitating for Minor. Now he has something to do. Like his office, which is also like his cell in Broadmoor, is just like, full of stuff. He has a desk, he has all these things. In the movie, he's like, I need a carpenter, and the carpenter makes him these awesome shelves, and I'm like, how do I get a carpenter? Once again, can someone just come to my house and make me shelves? Seems a lot easier then. But he's not doing well. He is still sick. He still thinks people are in the walls. So there are like, weeks and months where he cannot contribute, sometimes that he can. There's sometimes when they try to do other things to him, like electroshock and like in the movie for some reason they like, and I didn't see this anywhere else, but they would like make him throw up a bunch to take pictures of him. And that was like part of the thing. It was like whatever. They're trying to figure out how to make him better. Um, he says, these people are coming into my room at night and forcing me to do terrible things. Like they're forcing me to do terrible sexual things. So eventually that's too much for Minor and he cuts off his own penis.
Jeez. Do we
And
know how long into his stay he did this?
I think it was like 20 years in.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. And he like did it with, he had a knife because he had a knife like opening letters, and he did
Yeah.
it with that. Um, the guard who found him was traumatized for life, obviously, because he was covered in blood. And he did other things to himself. Like he was just like getting worse and worse, like, worse. His mental state was deteriorating. So Murray sees him deteriorating and he's like, you're my friend and I want you to have the best care. So his brother, Miner's brother, comes from the United States to try to bring him back to the United States so that he can be with his family as he's getting older. And then Murray, the professor, does a plea to the UK Home Secretary and asks him to be sent back to the United States. And the Home Secretary grants it. That Home Secretary is a 35-year-old Winston Churchill.
That's
Ooh,
fun.
do that. Isn't that fun? So it goes back to the U.S. and he dies at the Retreat of the Elderly Insane in Hartford, Connecticut in 1920. So he kind of once he moved, he stopped contributing, but he contributed so much to the dictionary. For Murray, we can call him Dr. Murray as well. Oxford gave him an honorary doctorate in 1914. Before that, he was knighted by King Edward VII in 1908. So he's like Sir Dr. Murray, all those things. And then the dictionary was released in installments. Murray spent the rest of his life working on it. He finished, because it's never really finished, because there's always new words, but he completed, for sake of completion, A through D, H through K, O, P, and T before he died of pleurisy in 1915, which
Yeah,
is like
pretty
an
far.
old-fashioned lung disease. Yeah, pretty good. So he died in 1915, and the book was complete in 1928, is when it was finally finished in its many, many, many volumes. Of all of the words, Dr. Miner contributed almost 10,000 words over 20 years.
This guy looks like Gandalf.
They both look like Gandalf.
They both look like Gandalf.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it
You
is.
said you have old white guy blindness. Like I don't think that's blind. I think like I think they're doppelgangers. I think they're legitimately like they just split at birth or something.
I know. Isn't that fun? They like found each other and like loved words together.
Yeah, it's great. It's sad
Love
that one
that.
of them cut his dick off, but
Yeah, said that he killed someone and thought that there were a bunch of people on his walls.
I mean, to be fair, that guy shouldn't have been in his place.
He wasn't.
I know.
Okay, I'll make that clear. He was not. He didn't do any of those things. Poor George was
I
just
know,
walking to
I know. He's
work.
suffering from mental illness. I
He could
get it.
stand by a fire all day and make beer.
Sweet, that is a fun story.
Is that fun?
Yeah. How did you pick this topic?
I found the book in my Airbnb
Okay.
and I just was like, this is cool. I feel like I would want to learn about this. So I
I
did.
love how we both find these little rabbit holes that take us down these
Yeah,
lanes.
totally.
Um,
Yeah, I thought it was super fun.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing. Maybe we can cover Webster next week.
Oh, yeah. You can be a dictionary podcast.
I mean, I would be curious about like some version of like who else had a dictionary?
Because remember
Like
the Brothers Grimm tried to do a German one,
oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
at some
Well,
point.
they never got that far though.
Yeah, and I think that like when you are thinking like that, like they were, you're like, I, because they were doing the same thing. I think that the Oxford Press and the societies are trying to do here is be like, we need to write down our language and say like the correct way to use it, because before the printing press, like you just didn't do that. Another thing about the dictionary is how hard it must have been to make those pages. Like every
Probably.
time they made a change, the poor printer had to like adjust the letter by letter in the printing press. Like what a job.
Well, the reason I'm also thinking about it is like the fact that English is the universal language, you know?
Hmm.
Like, is it because somebody did this?
I think it's because of colonialism, but I think this was the time that it was the opportunity to do it before, obviously, like they
I
lost
know,
a bunch of
but
stuff.
that theory would mean that, to the earlier example, then we should all have been speaking Roman universally, and then we should have all spoken Turkish universally, and we should all have spoken Persian universally. Like, there's a ton of
Yeah,
countries that have taken over a ton of the country or the world, and
but not at the same time that like the printing press was available. I
oh,
feel
you mean
like
like it's dippity, it's serendipity.
it's serendipity.
There you go. It all
Exactly.
comes back around.
Oh God, yes, good job. Good job.
Um,
Great work.
Very fun, Taylor. Thank you for sharing. Very fun
Hmm.
story. Very cool. Very interesting. And you guys got to look up these two guys. Just like they look like an image of like a wizard. It's incredible.
Yes, it's incredible.
Cool.
That'd be fun.
Anything else to share?
No, I'm going to do some of our requested ones next week. I'm going to look at that list. So thank you everyone for that. If you have anything that you want us to do, let us know. We are approaching our 200th episode. That's super exciting.
That is very exciting. I can't believe we
Tell your
got this
friends.
far.
Me either.
Kudos to us. Pat on the
Yeah.
back to us.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone on Patreon, Morgan, Nadine, and Juan. Appreciate you. You can find us there and on anywhere on the internet at Doomed to Fail Pod. Please tell your friends.
Oh, shout out to my buddy Daniel who wrote
Oh
in
yeah.
commenting your episode, Taylor, saying it's one of the best he's ever listened to about the Navajo Code Talkers.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Daniel.
So
That's
if you
awesome.
haven't heard that one, go back and listen to that one. But yeah, I think that's all we got. We can go ahead and cut things off there.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Bye.